Hello, welcome everybody to our next vodcast in our series. We want to talk today about commercial content transformation and GenAI readiness. I'm super excited to have our guest, Anurag Thakore, with us today. He's a renowned expert and thought leader in the space of commercial content and campaign operations. He serves actually as the head of content and campaign activation at Bayer in the US. He's overseeing both content management and campaign operations. And in his role, he influences and shapes Bayer's strategy in this area to enhance customer and patient experience. Welcome, Anurag. Good to see you again.
Thank you, Mark. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, I will ask you a few questions today about, your point of view, the state of the art about commercial content in pharma, the importance of transforming that area, and the potential role that you see for GenAI to drive this transformation. You're ready for this?
Absolutely. Exciting topic.
Awesome. So Anurag, let me start with the first question. In your experience, what are some of the biggest hurdles you and your team face when it comes to creating and managing commercial content today?
Right. So, in the pharma space, Mark, right, it's such a, this has been happening for a long period of time where we are limited by the time and resources from a content creation and from a content review perspective. The agencies and the brand teams that are creating the content and the MLR teams that are reviewing the content, right, they both are strapped for a certain amount of bandwidth and in terms of time and resources that they can do this, which basically means that selective content gets through the pipes in a reasonable amount of time. So which now leads to the comprehensiveness and the depth of content is missing, right? So of comprehensiveness in terms of volume, right? Having X number of pieces of content there, as well as, the aspect of personalization, the depth of that piece is missing because there's like one flavor for the most part. Secondly, from a content creation perspective, right? Today, if I have a need for a piece of content that needs to hit the market, by the time it gets through the life cycle and gets ready, it may be a while, right? Which might mean that it may come to a point in time when my need is like gone, right? So from the just-in-time piece is missing. And lastly, another key component is the aspect of content measurability. Right. Today we know what content, or what are the opens, clicks, views of pieces of digital content are there. But we don't have that level of clarity on the aspect of what is the content, what content is working, what content is not working, right? How do we basically merge those two things together to really provide the foundation for the marketers and the other stakeholders to define the content optimization and the content planning journeys?
Let me double click a little bit on what you said around, there's a lot of one size fits all in the content because of the burden that it puts on the brand team to create, and connect this to what you ask about measurement. Does the brand team not know how to strategic plan, or they're missing time and data to strategically plan their content and be more personalized? How do you see that?
I think they know how to do it. It's just they don't have the ammunition to do it, right? If I have the content that's there today like for example, most organizations have the content in a digital asset management repository. If I have the content there and if I can't search for it, or if I can't report on it appropriately, then the brand teams are kind of bound by the whole aspect of not being able to manage that their next steps or their next best action from their part, because they just don't have that ammunition, they don't have that information. So if we can get that level of visibility into the content, that'll help to start to drive some of the appropriate decision making, because there'll be some more transparency and clarity into what is going on.
Okay, that's good. So let's talk a little bit about how you see enabling your brand teams in the organization to be actually bringing their full marketing expertise, knowledge, and customer insight to this process. So, because when you look at content today, it's really just an image, a PDF. Mm-hmm. And the metadata at best describe that image with one headline. Maybe there's like a little subtext to it, mm-hmm. essentially, but it's really not structured data. So can we talk about how you handle this challenge, where you need essentially content and structured data to build effective marketing strategies, but it's currently not there? How are you tackling that?
Right. So, as we said, right, from an MLR systems perspective, most submissions are done at a page level or an asset level, right? And there'll be some baseline tags that have been set up. Now, those tags may be good for a certain level for the asset type, but may not be one, have depth, and two, they are not at a component level. So what do I mean by component? I'm talking about component as in it's a chart, it's a table, it's an image, it's a piece of text, right? Those things are not tagged, right? And when those things are not tagged, the whole searchability of that piece is missing. So if I can have a digital asset management solution that can harvest the asset and break it into parts, but if the parts don't have those tags, then it is really meaningless. So the intent is to create a good and robust content taxonomy. The taxonomy that tags the assets in a more appropriate manner, as well as tags the components in an appropriate manner. So now what I'm able to do is able to define and improve the searchability of the content that's already approved, as well as also provide context in a dashboard. So the brands, to our point prior, can make better and informed decisions about content optimization.
Yeah, so when what we hear now with the advent of Gen AI and the progress that's been made there, some people may think, forget tagging. I just have the content there and let Gen AI figure out what it is and recombine it all together. I don't need to worry about this anymore. How do you see that? Is Gen AI replacing tagging, or is there a different relationship?
Yeah, Gen AI is a technology, right? And the advancement of Gen AI in so many areas over the last so many years has just kind of, it's created so much buzz, right? Since the last revolution we had was the internet revolution, this is what is kind of, in everybody's conversations, any conversation you're having in the business context really has Gen AI coming into it, and this conversation is no different. Gen AI it doesn't replace some of the things that have to be done, right? But it's an enabler, right? Like any piece of technology, it's a key enabler to driving better business results and impact. So having the right level of tagging is our responsibility, right? The Gen AI will not define that. We have to define that. We have to define what are the guardrails, what are the business rules, what are the key things we want to tag, and set that up for Gen AI to leverage. Now, Gen AI can now go through all the components that are there in our repository and start to tag them. What it does, what it do really well is it would tag in a much more consistent fashion, right? As opposed to, like, if two human beings were tagging something, there'd be a level of subjectivity and there'll be a level of variance that'll come through. And speed would also be an issue, right? We can only, as a human being, we can only go so fast and so quick. So if you have a piece of technology that's tagging this, the speed and the consistency would go up, which basically means going back to the things we were talking about, searchability, as well as content optimized decisions. It creates a lot more assurance. You know that the metrics you're seeing, there's not a level of subjectivity, but a lot of level of objectivity into what is being presented. So I think if we do the foundations right, we enable Gen AI to do its piece. I think it's the human and the AI kind of partnership to make this process much more what it can be.
So you set the strategy, Gen AI will do the execution for you, basically using an automated tool to deliver the tags into the taxonomy you created. What I see, though, from what you're saying as well, is that as the tags turn content into data, another Gen AI will consume these data better than if it's unstructured content and has to understand. So you're building a better environment, not for Gen AI only to build the text, but then also to consume the text for analytics and other purposes down the road.
Absolutely. And I think this now you basically, our holy grail has been modular content, right? And lots of companies and organizations and teams have been working on this. How do you, with the advent of Gen AI now, some of those angles have been opened up, right? And you can have some faster leapfrogging events that can be used here, as opposed to kind of doing this in a much more of a linear manner through the teams that are supporting it. So what this can do is it can help to drive the whole aspect of speed, not just from a content review and approval process, but also in other areas, right? You can potentially use it for content authoring, and it'll definitely improve in the whole aspect of content assembly, as well as you just talked about the content optimization conversations. because of the fact that it can do it much more consistently, much faster, and much more reliable.
So what you were talking about the broader possibilities of GenAI. So you spoke about how it can evolve the content supply chain across all these different aspects of it. Now, what questions or concerns are you tackling around setting GenAI to work in a regulated pharma environment that you think are necessary?
I think providing guardrails is important, right? I think as defining rules by the stakeholders, right? By all the people who are part of this ecosystem, right? Whether it's IT, it's the MLR team, whether it's the business stakeholders and our partners, right? Making sure that those guardrails are very clear and there's compliance built into it, because it needs to be, as I mentioned, the human AI partnership, where we are basically defining the rules of the road and then leveraging AI to basically execute and make it happen in an objective and in an expeditious manner. So that's really where our opportunities are. And in the areas we can potentially go into, as I mentioned, right, in not just in the tagging perspective, but the tagging will also enable the content authoring and the content assembly angles, because of the fact that now you have content that's now, to your point, is more structured at a component level that can be leveraged for either reusing as well as for creating new pieces of content based on what's there.
Fantastic. So Anurag, I know you and your team, you're well on the way on this journey, and it's not an easy journey to travel. Do you have any advice for colleagues in the industry of if they want to get started in a similar manner on what they should consider, what they should watch out for, and any other words of encouragement?
I think, yeah, it's a long journey, and I think, like other organizations, we have been on this journey as well, and making small baby steps in terms of progress. I think some of the key things to do is to look at foundation, right? Not get jazzed by the shiny new object, right? Lots of places where I've seen, oh, it's a be all end all. Let's look at GenAI to solve all our problems, which is not going to be the case. It is there as a key enabler. It's going to help to drive a lot of the solutioning, but we have to enable it. We have to drive the business rules, the guardrails, the governance of it. So making sure the foundation's right, making sure there's a dam, there's some from proper taxonomy, there's people who are core to the process, who are stakeholders and champions and advocates, right? There's no point in having 3 people sitting in a dark room create something and unleashing it to the world, right? It has to be something of a collaboration where the cross-functional organization comes together and agrees, because that's where the most progress happens. Now you have people who are understanding the why behind it and are also kind of understanding the vision behind it, which will help to drive some of the success. So do the foundations right, get the cross-functional team, and don't get hung up on the shiny new object syndrome. Focus on the basics, do the things in small things right, and then eventually like the puzzle pieces will come together, right? And that's really I think is what we are trying to do, and I would hope to see like other organizations and could learn from them as well.
I look forward to hearing how that progress advances in the near future. Anurag, I want to thank you for time spending with us and sharing your experience. I look forward to speaking to you.
Thank you, Mark. Really appreciate the opportunity. Much appreciated. Thanks.
Bye.